Please, do make yourself at home. The mistress is away on business and may not be back for some time, I'm afraid.
That's okay. I'll wait for her return. I find it is best not to keep the nobility waiting when summoned.
Yes, indeed. Could I offer you a cup of tea while you wait?
Please, tea would be lovely.
So, what business does the mistress have with you, storyteller?
If I had to venture a guess, she seeks some knowledge hidden away in this tome of mine.
What sort of knowledge is it that you carry around in that book of yours?
The stories of Runeterra's greatest champions throughout history.
And my mistress? Does she make the cut?
Although a recent addition, Katarina of House du Couteau does appear within its pages.
It could be a while. Would you mind terribly telling me her story?
I suppose you might know it better than most, but I do not mind sharing it with you. I am a storyteller after all. The noble houses of Noxus are forged from strength, tenacity, and a will to persevere. House du Couteau is no different. At its forefront, the great Noxian general du Couteau himself, the father of 2 daughters, Cassiopeia, who took heavily after her mother, and Katarina, who was very much her father's daughter. Her childhood, if it can be called such, had little room for kindness or rest. She spent every waking moment imitating her father, pushing herself, honing herself into a weapon, testing her endurance, her dexterity, and her tolerance for pain, all to emulate her father, going as far as to steal poisons from the city's least reputable apothecaries, testing their efficiency in tiny amounts till she could build up tolerances, cataloging their effects so that she could command them for future use. Scaling the tallest towers in the dead of night, she would look out over Noxus, yearning to do her part, yearning for the opportunity to demonstrate her hidden strengths in service of the Empire and the throne. One day her first mark would be passed down to her, given to her by the very father she looked up to. Camped with his war bands on the eve of one of the military's innumerable westward invasions, she was to assassinate a line officer of the opposing army, some lowborn named Demetrius. Needless to say, your mistress was livid. She had not trained every waking moment of her life to have her talents wasted on some duller, barely skilled enough to swing a sword. Taking his life would be as simple as breathing for Katarina. He simply would not do. But opportunity reared its head as she stalked her target. A Demosian commander wandered into Demetrius's camp. As night fell, Katarina slipped into the camp, dispatching his bodyguards with ease. Then in a flash, she slit his throat while he slept. It had been a flawless execution. Surely it would bring swift victory and glory to Noxus. She knew it would make her father proud. However, what she did not know was that Demetrius had plans of his own. While Katarina was off seeking glory and praise, her target led a berserk charge into her father's encampment. Dozens of Noxian soldiers were slaughtered, along with the general's personal retainer. Your mistress's father barely escaped with his own life. Furious beyond words, he refused to even look at his daughter. She had brought shame on House du Couteau and her father. You see, the greatest of assassins do not seek glory or recognition. Her father reminded her that they serve as a hidden blade in the night, and much like a blade, it is not the blade who shall take the credit for a kill, but the master who wields it. Overwhelmed with guilt and doubt, Katarina struck out into the wilderness alone. She would complete the task given to her by her father and reclaim what little honor she had. Demetrius would pay with his life. Her mind swam with doubt. Could she ever forgive herself? How could she have been so foolish? Her mistress was so distracted by these thoughts. She never heard or saw her attacker until he had nearly taken her eye from her. For her failure, General Du Couteau sent another of his protégés after her. An assassin drug up from one of the lesser assassins' guilds. A nameless boy, given the moniker of Talon. 6 hours later, Katarina returned with Demetrius's head and tossed it at her father's feet. She had thought about bringing the head of her would-be assassin, but as much as she hated to admit it, he had done the right thing by sending him after her. She had failed, not just as an assassin or as a daughter, but as a Noxian. And failure must have its consequences. As she sat there running her fingers along the raw, deep gash over her left eye, her thoughts drifted to those who had paid the price for her arrogance. She never did regain her father's favor, but one day when she returned home from a mission, he was simply gone. With no instructions left as to whom would succeed him, Katarina was made the new head of House Du Couteau. Vowing to renew her dedication to Noxus, she would redeem herself no matter the cost, even allowing those whom her father had raised to replace her, simply to spite her, to remain in service to Noxus. She would become the hidden blade, the sinister weapon to the empire of Noxus.
I like it.